Thank you for watching the video. This is YouTube Medical University. Suddenly, have you ever looked at your health checkup results and thought, oh, maybe my blood sugar is a little high? Hemoglobin A1C is a value, and you notice its number is rising slightly. Are there any of you who feel vague anxiety about this? In fact, according to the latest research, 1 in 6 Japanese people is considered to be pre-diabetic. I think we've entered an era where this is no longer someone else's problem for anyone. When you hear the word diabetes, some people might feel a bit down, thinking things like strict dietary restrictions or not being able to eat what you like anymore. Even if you look it up on the internet, you see things like you can't have this or you can't have that. There are many such restrictions, but I think many people end up feeling lost about what to actually do. The other day, Ms. A woman in her 70s whom I examined, said, "Doctor, I can't eat cake or manju anymore, right?" She came to consult me with a really sad look on her face. But today, this video is made for people like you. What I want to share in this video is not about restrictions like you can't have this or this is bad, but rather by being smart and creative, you can lower your hemoglobin A1C, which is the average value of your blood sugar. This is a positive video, so I hope you'll listen with hope. It's not just about enduring or giving things up, just by making a few smart choices about what you eat and how you eat. You can actually manage your blood sugar levels well. By the time you finish watching this video, I think you'll feel like, maybe I can do this, and you'll start to look forward to eating again. I believe you'll find a warm sense of hope or a bit of new confidence growing inside you. The fact that you opened this video because you care about your health already means you've taken a wonderful first step in self-care. So let's enjoy learning together and gain the knowledge to take good care of yourself. Now here is today's agenda. First, in the first section, we'll talk about why blood sugar levels tend to rise easily, using the term blood sugar spike to explain what's happening in your body. I'll briefly and simply explain the truth. If you understand this part, it'll be easier to follow the next section about food. Then, in the second section, we'll talk about what you can put on your table starting today, the most powerful foods for lowering blood sugar. I've chosen 7 options for you to review, along with scientific evidence and specific recipes. I'm introducing them this time, so please look forward to it, like this. On YouTube Medical University, as an active doctor, we share useful information for immediate use. We provide key information to help you live a healthy, vibrant life. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on new videos. So in the first period, I'll talk about why blood sugar levels rise and the truth about blood sugar spikes. Let's begin by understanding our enemy. First of all, what does it mean to have high blood sugar? Blood sugar refers to sugar, which is important for us to live. It's like gasoline for a car. It's our energy. If that gasoline suddenly surges, and when it overflows in the blood, that's what's called a blood sugar spike. So what's wrong with this? When we eat food, it's chewed and broken down by digestive enzymes into the smallest unit called glucose, which is then absorbed into our body. This glucose, or sugar, floats through our blood and goes where it's needed, like the brain, heart, kidneys, or muscles. This energy, like gasoline, reaches the whole body. Sugar circulates in the body, and it's said our body regulates this to prevent high blood sugar. Insulin is the hormone responsible for this, as many of you already know. Generally, people think of it as a hormone that lowers blood sugar, but that's not entirely accurate. It's true that it lowers blood sugar, but what it actually does is move this sugar into the body's cells. In other words, it sends sugar to body parts needing energy, like muscles. Insulin is like a pass that allows this to happen. So because we use this pass called insulin, the sugar in our blood doesn't overflow, and instead, it gets delivered to various organs in the body. However, as you might have experienced, when you binge eat, especially foods high in sugar like juice or sweets, and eat a lot of those, you tend to feel sleepy, right? That's because the gasoline in your blood sugar level, rises rapidly. Then your body gets surprised and thinks it needs to lower your blood sugar, so it releases a lot of insulin. When that happens, your blood sugar level rises and then drops all at once. So if you draw it on a graph, it looks like a spike going up. This is called a blood sugar spike. If you keep repeating these blood sugar spikes and rapid fluctuations from binge eating, your pancreas, the organ that produces insulin, gets increasingly tired, making insulin release harder. Rapid blood sugar changes also strain blood vessels, which can lead to future problems. It is now said to be a direct cause of diseases like myocardial infarction or cerebral infarction, where your blood vessels get blocked. And that's not all. Not only does it become harder to produce insulin, but your body can also become less sensitive to it. Even though insulin is being produced as hard as it can, the body doesn't respond properly, so blood sugar can't be lowered. This is a scary situation. Since the blood sugar isn't going down at all, the pancreas thinks it needs to release even more insulin, but it still doesn't work. This creates a vicious cycle. So what we should aim for is to prevent these rapid spikes and drops in blood sugar. That's what's important, and I'll talk about how to do that in the next part. Preventing the blood sugar roller coaster and making the changes in blood sugar as gentle as possible, like a smooth hill, will help protect your pancreas and your blood vessels. And also, it's important to prevent or improve future diabetes. For now, it's enough to have a general understanding, just knowing that these kinds of things are happening inside your body. As long as you find it interesting, that's perfectly fine. Now, let's get to the main part. In this second section, what should you eat to prevent blood sugar spikes? I'll explain the specifics. Here are 7 foods that reduce blood sugar. The first is the king of fungi. It's mushrooms. Mushrooms are cheap and delicious, so I think they're the ultimate ingredient, but that's not all, especially among mushrooms. The nutrient I'm especially interested in is beta-glucan, a type of soluble dietary fiber that's abundant in maitake and shiitake mushrooms. This beta-glucan is a powerful ally. In fact, it absorbs water in your stomach and turns into a gel, which wraps around sugars and slows down the absorption of carbohydrates. That's the effect of beta-glucan. And what's even more amazing is that mushrooms are said to have what's called the second meal effect. The second meal effect means that it influences your next meal, which is why it's called the second meal effect. In other words, after eating these mushrooms, even the rise in your blood sugar at your next meal becomes more gradual. There are research reports about this. In one study, the group that ate maitake mushrooms at their first meal showed a more gradual rise in blood sugar even after their next meal. In other words, if you eat mushrooms at lunch, it might make it harder for your blood sugar to spike even at dinner. Maitake mushrooms are also very fragrant and relatively affordable. They're tasty in miso soups, salads, or stir fries. Try adding them to your meals tomorrow. The second food that helps lower blood sugar is seaweed, known for its sticky texture and power. Recently, seaweed has often been featured on YouTube Medical University as well. Sticky foods like these are generally rich in soluble dietary fiber, but that's not the only reason I'm introducing them today. Soluble dietary fiber dissolves in the intestines, serving as food for gut bacteria and helping regulate your stomach. It also adds moisture to your stool, making it effective for preventing constipation. But that's not the only reason I'm introducing it today. The nutrient called fucoidan, which is said to be the source of this stickiness, is now getting a lot of attention. Recent studies have shown that this nutrient called fucoidan can help slow the rise in blood sugar levels, which is why it's getting so much attention. According to research from Kyushu University, this fucoidan, it's been shown that this component interferes with the enzymes that help absorb sugar, which in turn helps slow the rise in blood sugar levels. In other words, it's surprising that these kinds of natural sticky substances themselves can help slow down the absorption of sugar. For example, just making a small habit like drinking a cup of mizuku vinegar at the beginning of your meal might help you manage your blood sugar levels better. It could be a very effective step toward controlling your blood sugar, so please try to keep it in mind. The third food on the list of 7 foods that lower blood sugar is here, natto, the strongest Japanese food. We've been talking about sticky foods, but natto is not only sticky, it's also a fermented food, which is said to have a positive effect on blood sugar levels. According to research by a Japanese company, when comparing eating only white rice to eating white rice with natto, the group that ate white rice with natto had a significantly milder increase in post-meal blood sugar levels. What's even more interesting is that when comparing a group that ate steamed soybeans with rice to a group that ate natto with rice, the group that ate natto with rice actually had a gentler rise in blood sugar. In other words, it's not just eating soybeans, the main ingredient of natto. That's important, but eating fermented soybeans, natto, that makes the difference. So natto is beneficial not only because of its stickiness, but also because it's fermented. I think it's a very important food for preventing and improving diabetes. Of course, you can get protein from it, and it's also rich in dietary fiber. I really think it's important to eat at least 1 pack a day. Now, the 4th food on the list of 7 foods that lower blood sugar is here. The source of muscle, chicken breast and tenderloin. I think you've heard that tenderloin and breast meat are rich in protein and low in calories, so you should eat them actively. This protein is also very important for blood sugar control. The biggest factory in our body that consumes the most sugar is the one we have. Muscle burns calories just by existing. People with more youthful muscle gain weight less easily, even if they eat more and their blood sugar rises less. To improve and prevent diabetes, dietary restrictions and weight loss are important, but increasing muscle is just as important. Also, muscle acts as a storage warehouse by temporarily storing glucose as glycogen, so in that sense it's important for storing energy in the body. If you have little muscle, you can't store sugar and fat tends to accumulate in the liver. It's also said you're more likely to get fatty liver. I've discussed this in a previous video, so check it out if you're interested. Back to the topic, more muscle means your blood sugar rises less after eating and insulin lowers blood sugar. It's said that the hormone also works more efficiently, so for that reason, when it comes to efficiently getting protein, it's considered better to choose white meat like chicken rather than red meat like beef or pork. But if you think chicken breast is a bit dry, I have a highly recommended recipe for you to try. I'll introduce a super easy, delicious and moist chicken breast char siu that you can make in the microwave without using the stove. When I first tried this, I couldn't believe it was chicken breast. It was so moist and tender that I easily ate a whole piece. The method is simple. Prepare one piece of chicken breast. To help it cook evenly, cut it so that it's the same thickness throughout. Then use a fork to poke holes evenly on both sides. Poke it all over with a fork to help it cook evenly, absorb flavors, and become more tender and moist. That gives you a tender result. Next, get a heat-resistant or Ziploc bag. Put the chicken breast in, then add soy sauce, mirin, and sake. Add 2 tablespoons of each, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and about 2 to 3 centimeters each of grated ginger and garlic. With this, you're nearly done. Massage the bag, remove as much air as possible, seal, and let it rest for 10 minutes. Afterward, transfer to a heat-resistant dish, cover with plastic wrap, and microwave at 600 watts for 2 to 3 minutes per side. That's it. There's an important point here. Don't take it out right after heating. If you do, the meat juices will escape easily, so let it sit in the microwave for about 5 to 10 minutes to let it cool down a bit. This way, the residual heat will cook the center and you'll get moist and delicious char siu. Just making this one dish is really convenient. Of course, you can eat it as char siu as is, slice it thinly for a salad topping, or add it as a quick dish when you're short on time. It's really convenient, so please give it a try. If you have any recommended recipes, please let me know in the comments. Here is the 5th food that helps lower blood sugar, oatmeal. Oatmeal actually contains a lot of beta-glucan, a type of soluble dietary fiber found in mushrooms, which I mentioned at the beginning, and that's not all. Many of you may already know this, but oatmeal contains regular processed dietary fiber, white dietary fiber. Unlike wheat or white rice, oatmeal is made by processing whole barley grains. Because the whole grain is used, the outer skin and those parts are included. In fact, it contains plenty of vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients, and those are exactly. It's also a source of dietary fiber, so one of the main features of oatmeal is its very high fiber content. A bowl of white rice contains only about 0.5 grams of dietary fiber. In contrast, a typical serving of oatmeal, which is about 30 grams, contains about 2.8 grams of dietary fiber, which means it contains roughly 6 times more fiber. It's often said that eating vegetables first is good for you, because by eating vegetables slowly at the beginning, the absorption of sugar becomes more gradual. That's why we're told to start with vegetables, right? In other words, in order to slow the rise in blood sugar levels, it's important to eat these vegetables. So by occasionally using oatmeal as a main ingredient instead, you can absorb beta-glucan and dietary fiber, which helps suppress the rise in blood sugar. So please give it a try. Try including oatmeal in your meals at least once a week. Oatmeal can be tough to eat, so here's an easy recipe I recommend. It's simple and just involves mixing. This first one has a unique flavor. It's a tomato miso risotto style. The recipe is easy. Mix unsalted tomato juice with oatmeal, then add a teaspoon of miso and some canned tuna. Cover with plastic wrap and microwave for about 90 seconds at 600 watts. Stir, sprinkle with black pepper, and enjoy a tasty oatmeal dish similar to tomato risotto. Adding cheese makes it even better, so try it even if you're unsure. Next, using the natto mentioned earlier, There's also oatmeal. Since this uses natto, it might not be for everyone, but I call it natto cheese bake. Put about 30 grams of oatmeal in a heat-resistant dish and mix it with about 3 tablespoons of water to let it soak. Then add natto. Add natto, chopped green onions and cheese. Mix everything together then. Microwave it at 600 watts for about a minute and a half. It's ready when the surface is a little firm. That's a good guideline. Surprisingly, natto and cheese go really well together and the flavour is quite impactful. It gets rid of the rough texture and blandness unique to oatmeal, making it a much punchier dish that's easier to keep eating, so definitely give this a try. There's also another recipe called overnight yogurt, where you let oatmeal soak overnight to make it easier to eat, almost like a dessert. The recipe is very simple. Mix 30 grams of oatmeal with milk or soy milk. Then add yogurt and a teaspoon of roasted soybean flour and mix them together. Let it sit in the fridge overnight. The oatmeal will absorb the moisture and become very soft, making it easy to eat for breakfast the next morning. On top of that, I like to add banana and a little cinnamon for extra sweetness. It's filling with a nice texture, helping prevent overeating. Getting morning dietary fiber also supports digestion. Please try it. The sixth food that helps lower blood sugar is soybeans, sometimes called meat of the field. Soybeans, including natto, are believed to benefit blood sugar because they contain isoflavone is being studied for its potential to improve insulin sensitivity, making it easier for insulin to lower blood sugar levels. Large-scale studies targeting Japanese people have reported that those who tend to eat a lot of soybean products have a lower risk of type 2 diabetes. Since soybeans are highly compatible with the Japanese diet, I think that if you can incorporate them well into your meals, they can be a great ally in improving blood sugar levels. It's not just natto, there's also soy milk, tofu, and for sweetness, kinako as well. How about picking up one of these soybean products at the supermarket and trying to use it in your meals? Here is the seventh food that helps lower blood sugar, eggs, which are a complete nutritional food. If you're worried about cholesterol in eggs, you might need to update your knowledge. A study reported by the University of Eastern Finland in 2019 found that even if patients with type 2 diabetes consumed 1 egg per day, it did not particularly affect their cholesterol levels. Other studies have even reported that for people at high risk of heart disease, eating up to 12 eggs a week did not have any significant impact on cholesterol levels. So I think there's no reason not to use eggs. I mentioned earlier that muscle is important for blood sugar, but getting enough protein which builds muscle is hard. That's why soybeans and eggs are so effective. Eggs contain no carbohydrates or sugar, so I highly recommend them. To improve the balance of your meals, try to use at least 1 egg a day. Eggs are a complete nutritional food, rich in protein and also in biotin, which helps with the metabolism of sugar. Please make use of eggs in your meals. If you have any egg recipes, please share them in the comments section. I think they will be helpful for others as well. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you found this video helpful or learned something new, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, or share it. That would really encourage me. I will continue to share important information to help protect your health. I would be happy if we could continue this journey together. This has gotten a bit long, so let's review the second period together at the end. For the top 7 foods to improve blood sugar, I first introduced mushrooms, which are high in beta-glucan. Especially maitake and shiitake mushrooms are rich in beta-glucan, so please be sure to include them in your recipes. The second food I introduced for its sticky power was seaweed. Do you remember what the sticky component is? I mentioned that fucoidan, the substance responsible for the stickiness, may help slow down the absorption of carbohydrates. The third food was natto, which is very popular among Japanese people. Natto not only has a sticky texture, but also the power of fermentation, so it may be particularly effective at moderating blood sugar spikes, even among fermented foods. I introduced such research. For the fourth food, which I think many of you already know, I talked about chicken breast and tenderloin. I also shared some specific recipes, so please try them out and let me know your thoughts in the comments section. The fifth food I introduced was oatmeal. Oatmeal? Some of you might find it hard to eat or haven't tried it because you haven't heard much. If so, please try the overnight oats or today's cheese recipes. Please give these recipes a try. If you have any other delicious ways to eat oatmeal, let me know in the comments. And to help improve your insulin sensitivity, I also introduced soy isoflavones, which are in natto, tofu, okara, and kinako. Let's skillfully incorporate soybeans into our meals. And finally, I introduced eggs, which are a complete nutritional food. When you eat eggs, your blood sugar levels The idea that eggs are bad for cholesterol is a myth. Eating one a day is generally fine. Still, check with your doctor. Maintaining muscle is key to staying vibrant as you age, so remember that. Please try to make a habit of eating one egg a day. If you listen to today's talk and thought, I understand that all of these things are good, but it seems hard to do everything. Don't worry. You don't need to be perfect. Trying for perfection can lead to giving up, so just try one thing and pick what you feel you can handle. For example, at your next meal, simply add fiber-rich wakame seaweed to your miso soup. The key is to make this a habit. The key is not to give up after just a few days. As you keep building on these small steps, they become habits. So keep the bar low and try things you think you can do. As you continue, those habits will last for 3 months, a year, 2 years, and will shape your body. Even if you end up eating something sweet, don't blame yourself. Just think, maybe my blood sugar went up a little too much this time. If you remember what you learned today and think, next time I'll try eating vegetables first, and take positive actions to replace old habits, that's great. The knowledge you gained today and the things you felt like trying, those will shape your health and your life a year or even 10 years from now. On this channel, I'll continue to support you in extending your healthy lifespan, so I'd be happy if you subscribe so you don't miss any important information. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. See you in the next video. As a general practitioner, I've learned from my patients about ways to live without aging from your 70s onward. There are so many stories I've heard from patients about ways of living that made me think, I want to live like that too. Talking with friends matters more than exercise. In medicine, less is more.